There was a silence that day, the kind of silence that makes the air feel heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. The morning of her wedding carried the scent of roses and rain. The white fabric of her dress breathed against the wind. The veil lifted just slightly, as if whispering a secret to the clouds. She stood in front of the mirror. Her reflection soft and trembling, a woman about to become someone else. Her hands traced the lace on her sleeves, and her eyes searched her own face for calm, but the calm never came outside. The sound of laughter echoed the sound of heels on stone, of cameras clicking, of lives pausing for perfect moments. She smiled when they called her name, but her heart did not move. Her mother fixed her necklace and said she looked like light itself, but there was something in her chest, something like a quiet warning. She ignored it. She told herself it was just nerves. She told herself this was loveth ceremony. Was golden sunlight falling through the windows, painting her face in warmth. The man she was about to marry stood waiting, his eyes soft, his smile rehearsed like he had practiced. Joy. She walked down the aisle, counting her steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, a slow rhythm between past and future. She could hear the beating of her own heart echoing beneath the violin. She could hear the world fading behind her. She could feel time stretching thin when their hands met. Something inside her stilled like the air before a storm. The vows fell from their lips like feathers, soft, easy, rehearsed. The guests smiled, the cameras flashed, and the world believed in forever for a moment. She did Tulita when the dance began, when laughter spilled into the night, and the photographer moved like a shadow, capturing moments that would never return. She felt a strange pull. She turned, once saw the camera flash, and saw behind her a blur, a movement, a shape, something that did not belong. She blinked it away. The wine, the music, the heat, it all folded together. She thought nothing of it, but the photographer saw it. He paused, his camera lowered slightly, the smile on his face fading, his brow furrowed, but he said nothing. He took another photo, and another, until the night turned to memory. Days passed, and the photographs arrived, tied with a white ribbon, the scent of ink and paper. She sat on the couch, flipping through them one by one, laughter, joy, faces blurred by light, until she reached the last photo, the one that made her hands freeze. Up behind her, in the frame between the flowers and the soft drape of her veil, stood a figure, faint, barely seen at first, then clearer, the outline of a man standing in the corner of the hall. Not her husband, not a guest, someone else watching her. She felt her throat close. She zoomed in, her pulse quickened. She recognized something, the shape of the jaw, the shadowed eyes, the way he stood, as if he had always been there. Her fingers trembled, her breath caught the sound of her name whispered somewhere behind her. She turned, but no one was there. Stared at the photo again, her heart beating too loud, too fast. It was impossible. It couldn't be him. He had been gone for years. World shifted slightly, the air colder, the sound of the house settling like a sigh. She placed the photo down, tried to laugh it off, but the laugh did not come. She reached for her phone, called the photographer. Her voice breaking, asked if he saw it. To hesitated, his voice quiet. Yes, he said, I saw it too, but I thought it was maybe a trick of the light, maybe a guest I missed, but I checked every list. There was no one like that. There was no man in that corner. She asked for the raw files. He sent them. She opened them one by one, zoomed in closer. The figure never moved. Always the same distance, same posture, same silent. Watching. Her husband came home that evening, found her staring at the laptop, her eyes hollow. He asked what was wrong. She showed him the screen. He looked, leaned closer, his face unreadable. Then he said nothing, just turned the screen away and closed it. Gently she asked again. He said it was nothing, maybe a shadow, maybe someone outside, but his hands were shaking. She saw it. She heard the tremor in his breath. At night, she couldn't sleep. She lay beside him, listening to his breathing, slow and steady, but not peaceful, like someone pretending to dream. She turned to him in the dark, asked if he knew who it was. He didn't answer. She asked again, softer this time, and still silence, until finally he whispered, please don't ask. Her heart sank into the sheets. She stared at the ceiling, waiting for the morning. The photo burned in her mind. She thought of every day before the wedding, every conversation, every time his phone lit up with a name she never asked, about the sudden trips, the moments he drifted away. While she spoke, she began to see all of it differently. Morning light crept through the blinds and painted Their room in pale gold. She rose quietly, went to her desk, opened the laptop. Again the man in the background stared back, unchanged, timeless. She zoomed into his face, the edges blurred, but the eyes clear and familiar. Her breath stopped. She knew now why her husband didn't want her to ask. She had seen that face once in a photo long before she met him, a photo he told her was old history. It was his brother's one who disappeared. One no one spoke of again, and yet there he was, standing behind her, on the day she said, forever, stared at the frozen image. Her reflection caught between two ghosts, one living, one gone. The world around her dimmed like light, fading through fog. She could hear her heartbeat. Again, slow, uneven, uncertain, she reached out her fingers, brushing the screen as if she could feel the cold of his presence through glass. She wanted to call someone, anyone, but her voice stayed locked inside her chest. House felt different now, the walls closer, the air heavy. She walked through the hallway barefoot, her steps soft against the floor. Every photograph on the walls seemed to shift in the corner of her eye. The laughter inside them hollow. She found herself whispering his name. The one she had never said out loud in years, her husband's brother, the man whose story was sealed away, the man whose absence was the reason her husband never spoke of home. Esh remembered the first time she asked about him, and how his face had closed like a door. He said it was complicated, said he was gone, said he didn't want to talk about it, and she never pushed again. Love makes silence feel noble, until silence starts to echo. She stood in the kitchen, and the kettle whistled, but she didn't move. The sound, sharp, cutting through memory like glass. She saw again the shape in the photograph, standing behind her at the wedding, like he had come to witness something, not the celebration but the truth. She called the photographer again. He sounded different this time, distant, cautious. He said he looked deeper into his files, said he found something strange in one of the video clips, something that didn't fit. He asked if she wanted to see. She said yes. Without thinking, clip arrived in her inbox. A few minutes later, she opened it. Full screen. The camera moved through laughter and dancing through champagne and music until it stopped for a second, focusing behind her veil, and there it was, the same corner, the same figure, but this time he moved just slightly enough to see his face turn toward her. The faintest motion, like a whisper caught on film. She felt her blood turn to ice. The room around her dissolved. She could almost hear the echo of her name spoken from a place that wasn't there. She paused the frame. His eyes looked straight into the lens, as if through it. Straight into her. He was smiling. Shut the laptop and pressed her palms to her face, but the image stayed inside her closed eyelids. She wanted to wake up, but she wasn't sleeping. She wanted to believe in coincidence, but it felt too deliberate. Husband came into the kitchen, asked why she looked so pale. She told him she saw it again, this time moving. He froze, and for a moment she saw fear, not confusion, but fear, like someone who had been waiting for this moment. She asked what he was hiding. He said nothing, but his voice cracked. She asked again, and he turned away. That night they didn't speak. He sat in the living room, staring at the fireplace. Though there was no fire, she watched him from the hallway, the glow from the streetlight cutting his face into half shadow, half light. She felt like she was looking at a stranger. She waited until he slept, and then she went back to the computer. She opened every photo, every video, every tiny frame. She searched for patterns, for clues, for meaning. The more she looked, the more she saw him, not just in the wedding photos, but faint reflections in the days before, in glass windows, behind crowds on the street. A figure, always near, always blurred, but always there. She went through her phone, through old memories, and found one photo months before the wedding, a picture of her at a cafe, laughing at something unseen, and there behind the window glass, faint, almost invisible, the same outline. She zoomed in, the same eyes, the same dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor. She pressed her hands to her ears as if she could block out the sound of her own heartbeat. She couldn't understand how long had he been there watching. How long had her husband known? Next morning, she drove to the photographer's studio. The world outside blurred through rain. He met her at the door, his face pale. He said he did more digging, said he recognized the man after looking through old newspaper archives, said there had been an accident years ago, a story that barely made print. The brother had gone missing after a dispute over money, over betrayal, over love. No body Eva Founch felt the floor tilt beneath her, her breath uneven, her vision narrowing. She asked what he meant by love. He hesitated, said there were rumors that the brother had been in love with the same woman, the woman who later became the bride. Her mouth went dry. She said that was impossible. She had never met him, but even as she said it, something inside her cracked memory fragments, like broken glass, something familiar about a message she once received years ago from an unknown number. The way it said her name, the way it felt like someone remembering her from before she existed, drove home. The rain heavier now, the sky bruised. She walked into the living room and found her husband sitting by the window. He didn't look up. She'd told him she knew. He didn't ask how. She just said quietly, "You weren't supposed to see him." Her heart clenched. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. She walked closer, asked what he meant. He said he thought it would stop after the wedding, that maybe it was all in his mind. He said his brother came to him once before they married, said he wanted to talk, said he wanted to make peace, but he disappeared again. And then the photos started appearing, shadows in the corner. She asked if he thought his brother was alive. He didn't answer, just stared out the window and whispered sometimes, "I feel him, Horethi." Lights flickered once, then steadied the air, colder. She felt something behind her, like the faint shift of presence. She turned slowly. Nothing there but the reflection in the glass. Two figures standing close, one solid, one fading. She couldn't breathe. She reached out, touched her husband's shoulder, his skin cold, his eyes still lost somewhere far away. She whispered his brother's name, and the air trembled. Clock on the wall stopped. The hum of the refrigerator died. The silence deep enough to swallow breath. She stepped back. The reflection in the glass changed. The second figure, now clearer, closer, his hand lifting as if reaching for her. She stumbled. The world tilted. She fell against the table, and the laptop crashed to the floor. The screen cracked, but the photo remained open. The figure, smiling still, crawled toward it, whispering, "Please, what do you want?" The image flickered like static. Then the lights came back on her husband, gone, the room empty. The only sound, her own heartbeat, and the soft echo of a man's laughter fading into nothing, sat there. Until dawn, light creeping in through the curtains, painting the walls in pale gray. She looked again at the cracked screen, the reflection of her own face, fractured into pieces, and behind it, faintly, barely there, the same pair of eyes, watching, still waiting. Morning after felt like a wound that refused to close. The light entered her home, but it carried no warmth. Just pale reflection over walls that once held laughter. She sat on the floor, still in her wedding dress that had lost its color. In memory, her fingers traced the edges of the cracked laptop screen, as if the truth could be pieced back together like glass. Her breath shallow, her eyes red but dry. She could not cry because the tears had already forgotten. Hearth's phone rang once, twice. She did not answer. The sound too sharp. Against the quiet, she stood, finally, her legs weak. The house too still. She called his name, her husband's name, her voice breaking, but no answer. She searched every room, empty. The bed still warm, the door unlocked, his shoes gone, his scent fading. Like a dream slipping away before morning. Walked outside barefoot, the road wet from rain, the air thick with something she could not name. She saw the reflection of herself in every window, and in every reflection, someone else stood behind her. Just for a second, and then gone again like smoke. She began to wonder if she was the ghost, not him. Photographer called again, his voice trembling. He said he went back to the venue to check something, said he found the same corner, the same place, where the figure stood, but now there was something carved into the wood of the wall, faint, but there a name. The brother's name, carved deep, like it had been there for years. Drove there, her hands gripping the wheel, too tight, the road bending through fog, the world shrinking until it felt like she was driving into memory. She parked outside the empty hall, walked through the open doors. The echo of her footsteps haunting the silence. She found the corner, the same one from the photo, the air colder there. She touched the carving, the wood rough beneath her fingers, her name carved beside his. She stepped back, her pulse uneven behind her, a sound, the faint shuffle of movement. She turned quickly, but only saw shadows. She whispered his name. The air responded with a sigh. She closed her eyes, and for a second she felt a hand brush against hers, light as wind. She gasped, turned But no one there. She took a photo of the carving, sent it to the photographer, but the image would not send. Every time she tried, her phone froze, the screen glitched, the carving in the picture changing slightly, letters, bending shapes, twisting. She threw the phone to the floor, it cracked like her thyrosis. She drove back home, she kept looking into the rearview mirror, the road behind her empty, but sometimes the outline of a man flickered there for less than a breath, always standing in the middle of the road, motionless. Her hands shook, she pressed the accelerator harder, trying to outrun what couldn't be outrun. When she reached home, night had already arrived. The lights in the house flickered on by themselves. She entered slowly, whispering his name again, her husband still gone. The air heavy. She noticed the photos on the wall, some turned upside down, some fallen to the floor. She picked one up, their wedding photo. The background changed, now the figure closer than before, standing almost between them. His smile wider. Koldish dropped the photo and stepped back, her chest tight. She wanted to scream, but sound had abandoned her. She ran to the bedroom, opened the closet. His clothes still there, but folded differently, and among them, an envelope with her name written in his handwriting, her hands trembling as she opened it. Only one photograph, an old one faded with time. It showed her younger, sitting at a lakeside. She didn't remember taking it. Behind her, the same man, the brother, his eyes fixed on her like he had always known her, even before she met them both. She turned the photo over. On the back, one line written in shaky ink. It said, "He found you first." She stumbled backward, the room spinning, her breath shallow. She dropped the photo and clutched her chest, the world narrowing around her. She ran to the window, pulled the curtains open, the street empty, except for one figure standing under the streetlight, motionless, face tilted upward, looking straight at her. Her blood turned to ice. She blinked. He was Gonish, sat on the floor, her body shaking, the envelope still in her lap. She whispered, "Please stop," but the silence only deepened. Her phone lit up, a message, unknown number, the same one she remembered from years ago. It said, "I tried to tell you before the wedding, you wouldn't listen." Her hands trembling, she typed, "Who are you?" The reply came instantly, "You know." Meth lights flickered again, the sound of the clock ticking too loud, her heartbeat echoing with it. She looked around the room, every shadow now alive, every reflection breathing, her mind unraveling between what she saw and what she remembered. She tried to hold on to something real, but reality had become soft and shifting. Picked up the old photo again, stared at the man behind her, the way he stood, the faint smile, the distance that wasn't distance. She whispered, "Why did you come back?" The answer came not from her phone, not from the walls, but from inside her head. A voice that sounded like his and hers at the same time, saying, "I never left." Ran out of the house, the night swallowing her, the rain falling hard. She reached the old lake where the photo was taken, the water black, reflecting no light. She stood at the edge, her heart pounding, and in the reflection, she saw them all, her husband, herself, the brother, all standing together. But only one of them breathing. She dropped to her knees, the water touching her hands, cold and real. She heard footsteps behind her, slow, deliberate. She turned and saw him, the same figure from the photo, from the wedding, from every shadow. His eyes hollow, his face calm. He reached out his hand toward her. She wanted to run, but her body refused to move. His voice, a whisper carried by wind, not accusing, not angry, just tired. He said, "I wanted you to see the truth." World tilted again, the lake shimmering like glass, and beneath its surface, she saw images, faces, moments she didn't remember but felt deeply. Her wedding, her husband standing where his brother once stood. Promises, repeated lines, borrowed memories. She realized what he was showing her, the marriage built on the same love, twice lived, once hidden, once stolen. She fell backward, the sky spinning, the world collapsing around her, and as the rain poured, she screamed, a sound that shattered the silence, finally breaking the years of unspoken truth. Her voice echoing across the lake, fading into the distance until nothing remained but the whisper of water and the sound of someone still watching from beneath the surface. The night had not ended, even though the sun had risen. She felt it in her bones, the kind of darkness that light could not reach. She sat at the edge of the lake, her hair damp, her dress torn, the water whispering secrets she was not ready to hear. Every ripple carried faces and memories half formed, Half forgotten, she wanted to wake up from it all, but there was no dream to escape from. This was reality, bending itself around her truth, turning in circles, until she could not tell what was past and what was not. Closed her eyes, and the wind spoke her name, soft like a lover, soft like regret. She felt the touch of fingers through her hair, though no one was there, and she heard again the voice that was not her husband, not the brother, but something between the two. It said, "You saw what was hidden, and now you must see what was lost." She wanted to ask why, but her lips would not move. Her thoughts floated like ash. She stood slowly, her reflection breaking under her feet. She walked along the water's edge, where reeds swayed like slow dancers, every step pulling her closer to a memory she had buried deep. She saw flashes, a childhood she did not remember, a face watching her from a distance, always at the edge of her sight, the same eyes, the same presence following her through time, until she mistook it for fate. Reached the old cabin near the lake, the door half open, the smell of damp wood, and silence. She stepped inside, her hands tracing the walls like they could speak, and they did. Faint whispers beneath her fingers, stories carved in dust. She found a photograph lying on the table, untouched by time. The same two brothers standing together, and between them, a shadow barely visible, the outline of a woman. Hirsch staggered back, breath caught the photo, fell to the ground, but the image did not fade. She remembered now moments she thought were dreams, the feeling of being watched, the letters she used to find in her mailbox unsigned, the whispers outside her window at night, years before she met her husband. She thought they were ghosts, but maybe they were warnings. Floor creaked behind her. She turned and saw him again, the brother, the same soft eyes now filled with something like sorrow. He looked real, more real than anything around her. His voice carried the weight of a confession. He said, "I tried to tell you, he took what was mine. I tried to stop the wedding, not because of jealousy, but because he was never who you thought he was." Stepped back, tears burning her eyes. She asked, "What do you mean?" And he said, "The man you married is not me, but he became me. He wore my name. When I disappeared, he took my life, my records, my past. He buried me, and built his love upon my ghost room." Spun, her breath shallow, her heart cracking. She fell to her knees, the truth slicing through every lie she had called love. She remembered small things, the documents she never saw, the friends who never came, the stories that changed each time she asked. He had erased everything to keep his lie alive, and she had loved him. For it, Ghost knelt beside her, his touch cold but kind. He said, "I came to show you, not to haunt you. I wanted you to see what he took, what you became without knowing you were living in a story written for someone else." She looked into his eyes, saw no anger, only release. He said, "You must end it, you must let me rest and let him face what he has." Donish nodded, though she did not know how. The ghost stood, turned toward the door, the light behind him fading as he stepped into the mist. She followed outside, but he was gone, the air still heavy with his voice, echoing inside her head like a song. Drove back to the house, the road empty, the world pale. She saw her husband's car parked in the driveway. Lights off, door open. She stepped inside, calling his name. No answer, just the faint hum of the refrigerator and the soft sound of water dripping. Somewhere she followed it into the kitchen, where he stood, his back to her shoulders shaking. She called his name. Again, he turned his face, pale eyes red. He said, "You saw him, didn't you?" She said yes, and he laughed, a sound broken and tired. He said, "I thought if I married you, maybe it would stop, maybe." His voice would fade, but he never left. He always wanted you, he always wanted to tell you. "I was the one who took everything, his name, his life, his love. I did it because I couldn't stand to be the one left behind." Her knees weakened, she leaned against the counter, her voice barely a whisper. "Why?" And he said, "Because you loved him before you ever met." Mesh shook her head, but her heart knew the truth, even before her mind did. The memories, the feelings that never had a beginning, they were his, not her husband's, echoes of a love stolen by deceit. She walked closer, tears sliding silently, her hands trembling. She said, "You killed him, didn't you?" He didn't answer, but his silence was enough. Fell to the floor, his face buried in his hands, whispering apologies that could not touch the air. She watched him crumble, and felt nothing, not anger, not pity. Just the weight of everything she had believed, collapsing like paper in range. walked away, left him there, his cries following her through the hallway. She reached the mirror in the bedroom, her own reflection fractured her eyes. Hollow, she saw behind her one last time, the shadow of the brother standing at peace, at last, his face soft, almost smiling. She whispered, "Thank you," and he faded like dust in sunlight. Looked down at her hands, the ring heavy, cold, meaningless. She slipped it off, placed it on the table, and the moment it left her finger, the air seemed lighter. Her chest finally able to breathe, she stepped outside. The dawn beginning to rise, the first light painting the sky with soft gold. She felt the ghost finally respite as she turned to walk away, a faint sound behind her, the creak of the door, the whisper of a name, her name. She froze and smiled a sad small smile, knowing that even peace leaves behind an echo. Dawn stretched thin across the horizon, her bare feet touching the earth like she was learning to stand again. The lake behind her, silent, no ripples, no ghosts, just still water holding its breath. She walked through the mist, each step a goodbye to the woman who had come here believing in forever. Her mind, a room slowly emptying of noise. She carried nothing but Earthtown still. Slept as she drove the roads, pale with fog. She did not know where she was going, only that she could not stay. The house, the lake, the photograph, all pieces of a story that had ended somewhere she had not noticed. She passed the bridge where they once stopped to take pictures, the railing rusted, the paint flaking. She remembered his arm around her shoulder, and how she smiled because the camera was watching, not because she felt Safesh. Parked near the old church where the wedding vows were spoken, walked through the gate, its hinges sighing, the air cold inside, like stone. She sat on the front pew, eyes tracing the stained glass, the colors bruised by morning light. She whispered to the silence, asking if love was ever real or just a mirror of need and memory. Her voice echoed back, soft, breaking at the edge. A door creaked somewhere behind her. She turned, expecting emptiness, but found an old priest lighting candles, his eyes kind, lined with years. He looked at her long enough to see what she carried. Without asking, he said, "Some spirits visit not to haunt, but to return what was taken." She nodded, though she did not understand fully. He said, "When truth arrives, it never leaves the same way it came, it leaves something lighter behind." Left a candle burning for him, for both of them, and for the version of herself that believed she was chosen by love, not trapped by it. The flame flickered, bending toward her as if bowing in farewell. Outside, the wind lifted her hair and carried the scent of rain. She felt the world turning toward something new, something uncertain. She drove without thinking, following the road until it opened into a hill overlooking the town below. She stopped there, the sky wide, endless. She stepped out and let the wind push against her face, eyes closed, breath slow. For the first time in years, she felt no one watching. Shook the old photographs from her bag, one by one, and tore them, the sound quiet but final, pieces of paper flying into the wind, falling like snow into the valley. She watched them disappear until only one remained, the wedding photo, the first and last she kept. She folded it gently, placed it under a stone, and whispered, "Rest now." A sound behind her made her turn, footsteps on gravel. Slow, steady. She tensed, but it was not fear, just awareness. She saw a figure walking toward her from the fog, not her husband, not the brother, someone else, familiar in outline, until it came close enough for her to see her own reflection in his eyes. Her husband's face, soft, lost, broken. He looked older, thinner, like years had passed since the last night. He said, "I came to tell you, I'm leaving. I can't stay in that house. It's full of him, full of us, full of what I did." She did not answer. The wind spoke for her. He said, "I thought I could live with it, but I see him every time I close my eyes. I hear him every time I breathe. I don't expect forgiveness, but I had to see you one last time to know you were real." She said, "I was real. You were the lie." And he nodded, tears in his eyes, not from guilt, but from something deeper, the grief of seeing what love becomes when truth burns through. Eth stepped closer, asked, "Can I hold you one last time?" She hesitated, then nodded, not for him, but for closure. His arms around her felt weightless, a memory replaying itself out of habit. She rested her head against his chest and listened. There was no heartbeat, just silence, like the space between notes. She stepped back. He smiled faintly, said thank you, and walked away without looking back, the mist swallowing him. Halesh watched until nothing remained but the sound of her own breathing. She looked at her hands, no ring, No tremor, only stillness. She turned toward the horizon, the first clear light of morning spilling over the hills, painting everything gold. She whispered to the air, to the ghost, to the world. "I forgive Youthwind," answered with a soft sigh, carrying away the last of the whispers. The lake in the distance shimmered. Once more, as if nodding in approval, she smiled, the smallest smile, not of happiness, but of release.